Welcome to Blind Abilities. I'm Pete Lane. Welcome to our third installment in our series on Aira, the visual interpreter for the blind. In our previous episodes, we focused on the user perspective. We spoke with Chancey Fleet, an assistive technology professional in New York City. We chatted with Nicholas Giudici and Michael Hinkson, both Aira users. And in this installment, we shift our focus to that of the agents. We'll speak with Amy Bernal, Director of Agent Services for Aira, and Patrick Lane, an Aira Agent Analyst. We'll learn about the agent duties and responsibilities. We'll hear their opinions on user safety. We'll get a detailed description of the Aira glasses and hear about plans for Aira to develop their own iteration of the glass. We'll hear the official price plans and much, much more. So sit back and listen to this fascinating conversation as we present part 3 in our series on Aira, the visual interpreter for the blind. Please introduce yourself. Tell us your name, your title, your location, and how long you've been with Aira.
My name is Amy Bernal, and my title is Director of Agent Services, and I am here at the Aira headquarters in San Diego, California, and I've been with Aira since August 24th, just at 5 months now. Suman, our CEO and co-founder, and I did our MBA together at UCSD. We were actually in the same sort of final capstone team together. And so I'd worked with him quite a lot over the 2.5 years of the program. And we also both worked for Intuit. And I was able to kind of track his progress with Aira. And when he decided to leave Intuit to go full time all in with Aira, and just was kind of inspired over the last 2 years to see everything that he'd accomplished. The story of Aira is very compelling in terms of the service and product. So when he approached me about leaving Intuit for Aira, I trusted Suman. I joke that I guess I'll just follow him around in the rest of my career and go anywhere.
There's nothing wrong with that, having a mentor. That's really nice. And Patrick, introduce yourself, please.
Sure. My name is Patrick Lane, and I am an agent with Aira. I am located in Jacksonville, Florida, and I have been with Aira since August 8th. I heard about Aira through a really great podcast.
Welcome to Blind Abilities. I'm Jeff Thompson.
And I'm Pete Lane.
Sent in a resume stating that what Aira represented, the service that they were trying to provide, and the people that were trying to help was something that I really, really wanted to be a part of. Received a Skype call, I think the next morning, interviewed, and I've been on since. And exactly like Amy said, Suman is inspiring. And once I talked to him and I heard all about Aira, it was kind of a no-brainer that this was something that was special and that should be a main focus of mine.
You are both agents, even though, Amy, you are the director of the Aira Agents. Tell us about what the agent responsibilities are and describe the dashboard for us, what the components are, and what the dashboard can do for the blind user.
First of all, the role of the agent is, I guess if you wanted to simplify it, we provide any kind of visual input that the user cannot provide themselves. On our end, we are able to do so much more than just visual input. We can provide lots of different kinds of immediate information to the users as they call in while providing visual input. We have a dashboard that is formatted really great so far. It's worked out amazing. We have a lot of features on it. Our entire computer screen is split horizontally. Our top half of it is also split again vertically in half. Our left side of the screen is a live visual feed. Our bottom is a live GPS feed that also gives turn-by-turn directions. And our top right corner is a Google Street View that shows us what intersections and fronts of buildings and everything looks like from the street, as well as the visual input from the camera that the user is wearing. We also can take pictures, Google searches, Yelp searches. There's a million other things we can do. We're going to have Uber integrated into it so we can call Uber for our users. We have the ability to look up a user's personal profile when they call in, which tells us where they're located. There are types of preference as far as visual description. We list it as 1 to 5, 5 being lots of description, 1 being very little. They don't care about what they're walking past. We look to see white cane or dog user. We even know their dog's names. We have notes that we can keep talking about their food preferences and if they're allergic to things. We can snap pictures of family members to recognize family members as they enter into rooms. So amazing amounts of immediate information and access right in front of us for our users.
Amy, anything to add to the dashboard and the duties?
Patrick really covered it very thoroughly. I would just add that agent duties really are to serve the user's preferences and their requests as long as they're safe and legal. legal. So, it's easy to kind of think of typical tasks that users call in for, but really, agents are there to do exactly whatever the user requests. Think of it as sort of a personal assistant in a way. They're there to kind of go above and beyond, not just let me give exact information on the task at hand. I think our agents really shine in that they're really willing to go find additional information or help a user in any way that is possible.
People have said, well, I don't really do enough to justify needing Aira. I don't travel a lot, for example. I don't do sophisticated tasks, technical things. I don't catch public transit. I don't need a lot of navigational assistance. I'm not sure what I do would be important enough to have to contact an Aira agent. What's your position on that?
I think it's one of the things that is maybe a misconception from users, that they have to have something complicated or they have to plan a project that might take up a lot of time. And really, users, our heaviest users, if you will, call Aira for anything you can imagine. It can be a really simple, small task. Recognizing furniture polish from Windex or making sure the oven is on at the right temperature. It doesn't need to be something that, is elaborate or planned. But I will say that, users are sort of delighted when they find that one thing that is kind of an aha moment for them or makes a really big difference. I think of a user who started reading books to her son for bedtime. And that's something that is not traveling outside of the home or necessarily complicated, but it was a really special experience every night for her and her son.
So even the most simple, mundane type things, you don't have any trouble with that, and the agents are very receptive to that. Do you feel the same way, Patrick?
I actually explain to a lot of our users that they don't have to feel bad about what they call taking up our time. They feel like, oh no, I didn't want to bother you for this. Like Amy said, there's really nothing that's too small. We're here waiting for the calls. We like taking all the new experiences like that. There's no task too big or too small. It gives us a chance to see all the different uses that Aira is capable of. As I talk to users, I encourage them to call and bug us as much as they want, because that gives us the experience and it gives Aira the experience as well in being proven. We tell them to use for literally anything, separating business cards, looking at their thermostat, even if it's a 2-second call.
That's reassuring, because I know a lot of people are hesitant. It's important to note here that the Aira agent is not a mobility tool. They're there to assist, but the user should still rely on their navigational mobility skills, their cane and or their guide dog. So what is a typical situation when you've got a user who comes up to a busy intersection? How would you handle that with respect to safety?
We do follow a protocol as far as crossing an intersection. We don't tell a user that it is safe to cross or to cross right this second. We don't give the instruction to do that. A user is capable of traveling on their own without us for the most part. So when we provide that assistance, we simply tell them the intersection is ahead. This is so many lanes wide. If there's a median or strip in the middle, if there's a curb at the other end, and if we can see the light across, it notifies whether or not to walk or stop. And then as they do have time to proceed, we'll say, okay, traffic has stopped. I'll stay quiet. As you feel safe to cross, go ahead on your own accord, basically. We don't tell them to cross or tell them it's safe. They're the ones there in the situation. We just tell them if the cars have stopped and stay quiet as they do.
Good. And still on the same line, Amy, on opinion, the agent's opinion. We talked a lot with Nick and Michael last week about this. The agents are instructed not to really share opinion per se. Is that difficult to separate for the agent? Like when somebody's in their closet and they say, well, I'm going to be wearing this shirt. Does this pair of pants or accessory go with it? What's your position with allowing agents to get into that kind of a discussion?
Yeah, so that's a great example. And the agents are trained, instead of just saying, oh, I think it looks great together, what is the information that would help the user decide if they wanted to pair those two pieces? Obviously, describing color, texture, patterns. We tell you if you want an opinion, by all means, voice that and ask the agent. I don't think an agent would decline giving an opinion if directly asked for it by the user, but they would not offer it proactively, if that makes sense.
Good. Because as a sighted person, you use different types of input to make your aesthetic judgment. You know that this shade goes with that shade, but as blind people, all we have is your input to make those judgments. The more input that you can give us, that ability to make judgment is better. That's kind of our input. Do you have a typical, more routine contact?
I don't think that there is at this point a routine or a typical thing. Maybe a few months ago when our call volume was a lot less, we'd have typical calls around certain times of day. Our service starts at 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. in every time zone. So the East Coast is obviously the first people up, and a lot of our users were West Coast. So a lot of the calls I would be getting in the morning were typical morning calls. Some people wanted their coffee. Some people were asking about just around the house calls. Now it seems that we have no idea what we're going to get when we get a call. We have calls coming in from all over the country, all different times a day. It completely varies. I've been on calls that were amazingly quick, less than a minute, and a call the other day between reconnects and whatnot was over 2.5 hours. There's no routine at this point. We've done movies, theme parks, restaurants, shopping centers, malls, airports, everything, sightseeing, museums. We have no idea what we're getting. It's an adventure.
Can you share one or two more memorable contacts?
Yeah, I can't share user information or anything, but I've been to Arlington National Cemetery and walked around for over an hour there. It was amazing. I feel like I could probably go navigate the place on my own, even though I've never been there. I've been to 10 to 15 different airports in the last 2 weeks, but the most memorable ones are the ones that the user has the special kind of experience where they end it saying, wow, or thank you, that was amazing. That's the more memorable ones. It's not the task that we do, it's the result and the feedback that we get from the user themselves.
Mike Hinkson, Patrick, cited a call where an agent helped him put together a laundry cart.
My favorite example in that regard is that I purchased a laundry cart last month and needed to assemble it. In the middle of the night, I woke up and realized I can call Aira. The next morning, I did call up Aira and worked with Patrick.
Would you know anything about that one?
I've been known to put a laundry cart together.
How did that go? Describe the mechanics of that, because he talked about different things that you did to facilitate that. Walk us through that quickly.
And some of the parts weren't obvious as to what they did.
There was no written instructions for it. It was only picture instructions.
Looking at the instructions, these are all pictures and it's not really clear at all.
They were extremely hard to follow. I snapped a picture of every page of it for reference.
In addition to looking at the instructions that I had on paper and taking pictures of those instructions so he had them right on his monitor at all times.
We set out all of the parts.
He was able to use his agent dashboard to go online and find additional information that helped us in the assembling of the cart.
I did some research online through some of our other tools that we can use. I actually had a tablet out that day too, just to make sure I could extend in every direction to try and figure out how to do this. I ended up finding a few helpful YouTube videos that I watched in little minute-long segments, and then I would relay the information and we would try it until it worked.
And lo and behold, within an hour, we had the cart completely assembled, up and running, and doing exactly what it should do.
I want to say almost 2 hours later. It was a pretty solid laundry cart.
I would never have been able to do that on my own.
It looked good.
And that is really pretty cool.
Yeah, he was very complimentary of that. Amy, do you have any memorable contacts that you handled personally or that your agents may have brought to your attention?
I'll start with a story that was kind of my first session where I was an agent, where I felt really just emotionally moved. Now it feels kind of commonplace, but it was kind of the first time that I, almost got choked up, if you will. Obviously, I would never tell the user that or try to, make sure that that didn't come across in my voice. But it was one of our users who calls in frequently to pick his son up from the school bus. We went from the school bus back to the house, and he wanted to see what was in his son's homework folder. Inside of the homework folder, there was a picture that his son had drawn at school that day. And so I said, it's actually, a picture your son has drawn. And so I got to describe what his son had drawn. And then he was able to talk to his son about it while I was on the session. Like, hey, I see that you built this robot that's green. Like, why did you draw a robot? And why did you pick green? And it was just a simple interaction, but it was really moving to me in terms of him being able to interact with his son in a way that maybe he never had before, where I don't know what he would have done before. Maybe waited for his sighted spouse to come home, maybe just asked his son to describe it. But to be able to proactively talk to his son about something that he had done in his day, I thought was really special. An unusual session, I would say, one of our users who is low vision and does run and bike frequently, he bikes to work. He went running, he called in to go running. And I think it was just one of those things that, as an agent, you want to make sure that this is something that he would have done on his own without Aira anyways. And it was just really fun as a runner myself to kind of be on a run with someone. And obviously it's really inspiring that he does that. So that was, I think it kind of made me nervous, to be honest.
Yeah.
Making sure that it was something that he does frequently and it wasn't like he was choosing to do because he was using Aira. So once we established that it was a normal activity for him, I was a little relieved, but I definitely, when he called in and was already like starting to run. So it was kind of one of those, oh my gosh, I'm on a run right now.
No kidding.
Yeah, I remember the first time I got a video pop up and the user was on a bike.
Yeah.
No, really?
Yep. Already on the bike.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I think that's actually a good point. It's always surprising when a user calls in sort of like mid-activity. Most users, and we kind of tell them like, try and, call while you're still stationary so that the agent has time to kind of orient like where you're located on maps and kind of get their bearings. But some users will just kind of call in mid-activity and you gotta catch up really quickly.
Mid-stride, yeah.
Well, it's like Patrick said, you're on the spot, and that would be really on the spot. On a bike? Were they in traffic?
It was very early. It was dark. Not a lot of traffic. They do it all the time. They were just testing, basically, to see what Aira is good for. And another thing that, as agents, being the first group of agents, too, our job wasn't necessarily fully defined, and we're still kind of figuring out what our role as agents are. And I kind of think it's our duty, not necessarily put someone in harm's way, get them running into traffic, but to try all the new things that every user wants to try and to see if it's successful or not. All of our agents are so different and diverse too that even if the user wants to just utilize our personal skills or interests to try a new activity, for instance, I'm going to give a guitar lesson to see how that works, to see what kind of quality we can do. I know not every agent can give a guitar lesson, but I've talked to other users. I'm into golf. I'd love to give my personal advice on golf if anyone's interested in trying that. So our agents can offer so many different things, just what they're good at, all the different things they're great at. And to get out there and tell everybody about Aira too. I love getting out into the community. I try and get out and I do demos for groups. I try and attend to these conferences just to talk face-to-face with the users.
All right, like she said, everybody, we are Aira. So we're just going to start with a small video that kind of tells our mission exactly what we do at Aira.
A live service for blind and low vision people to help them gain.
That's what really is, I think, the drive to continue to try and do all these new things, because our users are amazing. They're really very interesting, special people.
Talk about the glasses. Describe them, the form factor, the capabilities, what buttons, that kind of thing.
Sure. So our glasses are, I would say, relatively small and sleek. The frame is just a very thin titanium. It's probably not much bigger than like a dry spaghetti pasta. It's very thin. And then on the right side, probably about 1/2 inch thick, holds, the computing power, the battery, the camera, as well as the heads-up display that, we don't really use in our service, but exists there.
These are Google Glass, right?
They are, yes. Mm-hmm. So if you're running your hand from the back of the right stem, you'll feel the power button that's at the very back of that right stem. And, really users only have to use that if they want to completely turn off the glass or do a hard reset. Otherwise, you can just fold them and they go to sleep, unfold them, and they wake back up and connect to the MiFi. And so that button is on the very back of that right-hand stem. As you go along the bottom of the stem, you'll feel the charging port. It's a magnetic charging port, much like a MacBook would be. The connector to that is sort of like a soft rope feeling. It's not like a wire. And I won't lie, it is a little bit finicky for some of our users to make sure that it snaps in and stays in. So not one of our favorite features of the glass, but that's how you charge the glass with the very bottom right-hand side. And then on the top of the right-hand side, you'll feel a circular button that in our past software versions of the glass we used to enable privacy mode or scan for Wi-Fi. And we actually learned from about, 20% of our user base that button would malfunction and sort of enable itself. So they'd be in the middle of a session and, privacy mode would be enabled and they hadn't selected it. So we just disabled that button. So right now it's pretty much useless. There's just a button on the top right-hand side. It's very small and it's at the point where the glasses hinge. So you wouldn't maybe even notice it unless we told you it was a button. It's kind of feels like the hinge of the frame. And then the camera is over the top right-hand eye of the frame. And then the heads-up display is a rectangular thing to the right of the camera.
Now, you mentioned they fold, so they can be compact. Is there a case that they come with?
We send you a case, the leather case with our logo on it, and it has on the side where you would insert the glass just a mesh over the half, so you can kind of slip it in and it stays snug. And on the other side of the case is where we'll store the charger. And the charger is, as I mentioned, that magnetic charging port, and it feels much like a small rope. And then it has a USB, and that connects to the square that goes into the outlet in your wall. Just like your iPhone, you could unplug the USB from the wall port charger.
Are there lenses in both eyes?
We actually send our glass without any lenses, and we do that because a lot of our users prefer to wear their own glasses if they have either sunglasses or some other prescription glasses. So we just have them wear the Aira glasses on top of their normal preferred eyewear. If you request shades, we can get those for you, but they don't come with any lens.
Are you working on developing your own glass? And if so, what stage are we at, and what some of the features might be, and when we might expect to see some sort of a new iteration of the Aira glass? Or as a friend of mine said, as Cheryl said, the Freedom glass.
Freedom, 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 freedom.
That's awesome. I would say within the next year, we would love to have our own form of glass. I don't know if we'll actually manufacture them. We'll partner with a manufacturer to kind of design what we want. So ideally, that Aira Smart Glass would have cell phone capability, cellular capability, so you're not worried about connecting to another Wi-Fi device or a network really ever. It would have bone conduction headphones built in so that all of the audio is coming through the glass but is not audible to the public. And we would also love for the video camera to not be over the right-hand side of the glass. We'd love it to be in the center, or maybe, dual cameras.
Yes.
These are all kind of things that we would love, and I know will be possible. It'll just take some time to partner with the right company and build a glass that meets our specifications. And so our VP of engineering has been working with different providers and really kind of doing some road tests with what the form factor is like, how durable are they, do they have the quality of video that we require.
Patrick, as an agent, would you have any desired features that you'd like to see in the new glass?
There is probably a few that we could all think of that would be amazing. Obviously, the Google Glass wasn't designed for Aira in mind, even though Aira's got to be the best use for it.
Mm-hmm.
On our end, I think it would be cool to have some typical features that you would have on any kind of high-end video camera. Maybe a zoom, maybe the ability for not necessarily a depth perception, but some way to estimate distance a little bit more accurately when you're at least talking about longer distances. And then, like I mentioned, having some conversations with users while in downtime on sessions. One of our users mentioned that it would be really kind of funny to have the 3D 360-degree view cameras just give all the agents VR headsets so they can just look around the room without having the user turn their head.
Amy's going, fat chance.
Yeah. The camera in the center of the glasses would be great. The computer screen in front of the eye is kind of pointless. The built-in headset, the jawbone conductor is great because a lot of our users use a form of echolocation and just being able to hear their surroundings better without having an earbud. Our users use headsets. Some of them have very cool headsets. One of our users has a headset that also has external speakers on it so that when she does have other people traveling with her, she can put me on speaker and have everybody hear my direction. But for the most part, they have headsets that they use on their phone, and a lot of them do have the jawbone conductor ones. Those are pretty great. They can hear everything around them as well as us. It's convenient. Plus, it's just
Good.
safer to have it that way.
Oh, yeah. So your phone has to be on your person. Cheryl mentioned to me, Amy, that the phone camera can be used if, for instance, the glass loses its charge. And she found a pouch with a lanyard that goes around her neck that puts the camera in a nice central position. Are you thinking about adding an accessory or anything like that that might facilitate use of the phone?
Yeah, I think that's something we would definitely explore in terms of adding as an accessory. Most of the time, I've found that users stream from phone when they're not traveling. So if they're maybe shopping in a store and it's easier to kind of, get their phone close to items rather than bend down and up, to get at eye level. And the phone really shines in times where the connectivity is poor. So instead of having to make that hop from the glass to the MiFi in terms of connectivity, I would say our users leverage their phone. One, if they don't have their glass with them, maybe they forgot it at home or, what have you. Two, when they're not traveling and not really worried about being hands-free, maybe at home where, you want a quick, simple thing and you already have your phone on you, so you just call Aira. Or like I mentioned, shopping where you're in a store, you're not, obviously you're walking about the store, but it's easy to kind of say, okay, let's look through this aisle. I'm going to put you in my pocket for a minute while I go to the next aisle or what have you, where it's not, a high risk travel situation. We're definitely open, I think, to learning from users and would not be opposed to including another accessory.
Fanny pack. Really cool fanny pack. Those are back in style.
They are back in style though, right?
Oh, and they're so fashionable.
They're getting there. The millennials are making it happen. The users are always looking to get something out of their hands. When they're out traveling, they either have a cane or a leash in their hand. And, when they're at home connected to us, they have a phone in their hand. So anything that frees up their hands.
When I first started losing my vision, the blind person said, just remember a blind person has only one hand.
There's also a funny thing that some of our users do. I don't know what to call it. It's like fumbling. All right, hang on a second while I put everything in my pocket and we'll get walking.
Right. Prep time, right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, brass tacks. Amy, can you talk about the current price plans, period?
So today we have two plans. The first is the Plus plan. It's $129 a month. And usually that's for 200 minutes a month. But for our Explorers, for the first 3 months, we bump that up. We double that to 400 minutes a month. There is a Pro plan, which is $199 a month, and normally that's 400 minutes. But for the first 3 months for our Explorers, we have unlimited minutes. You can call as many times as you want, as much as you want. And we also will look towards having some sort of, scheduling capability and reward program with that. And then we're also offering in the next week or so a basic plan, which would be $89 a month. And for those first 3 months, 200 minutes, and regularly 100 minutes a month. And that all includes the glass, the MiFi. If you were to lose your glass or have it stolen, we would ask for a $199 deductible, but we would then cover the rest of the cost and send you a new one. So kind of a worry-free insurance policy as well. And just so you know, we do allow minutes to roll over. And even if you don't use that month, roll over for 3 months. So let's say February, I have the 400 minutes and I only used 350. The 50 unused minutes would be good through March, April, May. The first 3 months, though, go crazy, Pete.
Tell me what Aira's doing to improve connectivity issues.
So network connectivity, I already talked about the MiFi device, and that doesn't solve yet for when AT&T has poor service in an area, but it does solve for the engineering team being able to ensure we're all on the same playing field. So imagine when you're working with users that are on a myriad of cell phone provider networks, it's harder to assess, the root cause of any connectivity issue. So now all of our users are on AT&T if they are on the MiFi. In terms of how we are going to solve connectivity, I'll say that's a problem for every company and sort of every person in America, if you will. You never want to have your cell phone have poor service. I know in the last 2 weeks, I'm a Verizon user and I've noticed, hey, I only have one bar in some places I go frequently, like the gym I use every morning. I have almost no service. And that's frustrating anyone using anything, even if it's just simply, I can't stream my music at the gym. Like, that's not going to work for me. So I think it's a problem that every company is trying to solve, and we won't solve alone by ourselves. But I will say that we do, in that partnership with AT&T, we are working towards a pilot that would allow for dynamic traffic management, meaning prioritizing the connection between the user and the agent. So that is, not released yet, and we still have to pilot that before it will be, released in production to all of our explorers. But I'm really excited with just what that could mean for our users and agents, really, so that agents aren't saying, oh, your video is kind of granular, I need to snap a photo, or, let's pause and wait for the video to catch up. Because that does happen in places where connectivity is low. Imagine the subway, imagine being a football stadium where everyone is on their phones. Yeah, hospitals, anywhere that's like underground or insulated, or there's tens of thousands of people, you're going to have poor connectivity, and it's not unique to Aira. It applies to everyone. So, that's what we're doing. We're really working with AT&T to see what we can do to prioritize our service above kind of other things that people would do to browse on the web. And in the meantime, I would say we troubleshoot user to user. So if some users don't have great AT&T service in their home, we get them set up on their home Wi-Fi that they would use anyways if they were at home, or same with their office. So, we're really case by case, we'll work with the user to get them what they need.
Patrick, if you're on a session and the call drops, what's your protocol, your procedure?
We have a couple things we can do. First of all, if the person knows they're having connectivity issues, it's almost a guarantee that they're going to try and reconnect, especially if they're not finished the task at hand. If they can't connect at all, then we definitely contact them and explain, basically reach out to them. We have their email and their phone number. We have the ability to call them through our computer and make a call to users to keep in touch. We don't ever let them wonder why they couldn't get through, that's for sure. So if a call is unanswered because 5 come in at once, or if a call is dropped and the user can't connect, they're going to hear from us. Make sure they're supported by us.
This concludes part 3 in our series about Aira. Stay tuned for part 4, the final installment in our series. We'll hear more from Amy and Patrick and get more in depth on the agent perspective. Amy will talk about Aira, the company, and what's in store down the road. We'll also hear from other users, including myself. In the meantime, thanks so much for listening, and have a great day.
When we share
what we see
through each other's eyes, we can then begin to bridge the gap between
the limited expectations and the reality
of blind abilities.
The realities of blind
abilities.
For more podcasts with a blindness perspective, check us out on the web at www.blindabilities.com, on Twitter at blindabilities. Download our app from the App Store, blindabilities, that's 2 words, or send us an email at info@blindabilities.com. Thanks for listening.